Hi everyone, so glad that you could join us today. I hope you had a great rest over the Easter weekend, and are back to join us today to learn and have your lunch at the same time. If you're joining us for the first time, please note that recordings are made available on HeadHunt's Facebook page. So do check us out and feel free to like and share with your friends. Now we will start shortly because we're waiting for more people to sign in. So just give us a couple of seconds more. Great, we shall begin. Good afternoon. Welcome to What I Need series for executives, brought to you by HeadHunt and Workforce Singapore. Broadcasting live, we have with us clinical psychologist Dr. Mayan Lim, who will be sharing with us on the topic of managing workplace stress. Thereafter, we'll have Ms. Shahika from Workforce Singapore, who will share with us on programs made available for Singaporeans. Please note that there is a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, so please feel free to type in your questions at any time during the presentation. We'll also be conducting our feedback poll right at the end. So without further ado, I'll now pass the time to Dr. Lim. Dr. Lim, over to you, please.
Hi, everybody. So glad that you can join us here today. My name is Mayan. I just wanted to give you a bit of background about myself and what I do, and then we can jump straight into the presentation. So I'm a clinical psychologist and I work across a lifespan. The age range that I see is about 4 to 70 years old. There's a variety of presentations, from family divorce to sleeping difficulties with children to anxiety, stress, depression, building interpersonal skills, working with autism, the wide range. And I say that because I think that in this day and age, there is almost an overload of information out there. And I remember one of my girlfriends saying to me, you know, how do I even know that the stuff on TikTok or Instagram is true? And with that in mind, I've actually organized our presentation today to be quite empirically based. So don't be scared. I'll make it as simple as I can for you, but I do this for two reasons. I want you to know that what I'm talking about is based on peer-reviewed information. So it's not just some, I don't know, chat kind of stuff from outside, but it's actually what we know to be scientifically researched, and that there is a good amount of data behind it. And I think the second important thing is it's really important because I would love for you to be able to understand the reasoning behind the concepts. So not necessarily just understanding the strategies, but really thinking through, right, how did this strategy come about in the very first place? What do I need to understand so that when I'm faced with a difficult situation, I can then generalize this across contexts, across environments, because you don't have me in your ear telling you what to do. So with that in mind, I'm just going to start by sharing my screen, and hopefully this works really well. And we can get going. Hey, there we go. All right. So I've given you the understanding about why I'm going to use a bit of research today. I promise you I will keep the jargon as minimalistic as possible. Okay. This is going to be our outline. We're going to talk about stress. What is it? And then we're going to move into regulation, which is a really big buzzword at the moment. And I think one that's incredibly important for all walks of life. And then I want to talk about flow, which is the concept of there being some stress, but not too much. And then we're going to go into some strategies about mindfulness and things like that. All right, so let's kick off. So essentially, stress is a demand, a pressure, a tension on the body, mind, or emotions. There's a couple of things that we need to remember about this. Stress in and of itself is not good or bad. However, when there's too much of it, it actually is harmful to our bodies, and we end up having quite poor physiological outcomes, such as high blood pressure, cardiovascular issues, poor immune system, our metabolic rate is affected as well. There's also I want to make clear the two different types of stresses. There's acute stress and chronic stress. Acute stress would be big stuff that happens, quite significant one-off traumatic events, war, assault, a robbery, a car accident, the major life events that occur, and it's responded to in a fight or flight way. Chronic stress is probably something that we're all a bit more familiar with. I like to think of it as the straw that broke the camel's back. It's an accumulation, an accumulative load of everyday ongoing stresses. This bill needs to be paid now, but that bill needs to be paid in 2 days, and there's only that much money I have. What do I do? So it weighs on our mind even as we go to work. It weighs on our mind even as we talk to our kids and so on and so forth. So it's an ongoing cumulative load. And the third one we're going to cover later on when we think about different aspects of stress and where we sit in the stress curve. It's actually a really important one. It's about personal skill versus task difficulty. You will kind of need to do a bit of reflection here about whether it is an actual lack of skill on your part. Do I have a deficit here that I need upskilling for? Or is the task actually too hard? So one of it, I can change by upskilling, I can do it better. And the other one, it might actually be about rethinking my job scope or passing it on to somebody else or having a conversation with my boss that I'm not able to complete this task. And the balance between this is going to be really important. And I'll talk about this later on. All right, onto the empirical stuff. Now, hopefully I don't lose half of you. Essentially, I'm going to dumb it down, okay? A systematic review is basically a review of a whole bunch of studies that have been done. By putting all the studies together, we're able to then look at whether there are certain patterns, whether there are certain trends, and we're able to, I guess, give people a take-home kind of answer. And essentially, this systematic review on workplace stress interventions have found that mindfulness was very effective with reducing cortisol, which is our stress hormone. So that's your first take-home point. Mindfulness works. All right. The second and interesting one is that mindfulness practice does not actually need to be very long. So I think sometimes we can kind of fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I need to do this for 30 minutes. I need to do this for 1 hour. And what they actually found was you don't. And in my clinical practice, I often say to clients, I would prefer frequency over duration. So even if you remember to do it for 5 minutes and you last for 2 minutes, that's okay. If you remember 3 times a day, it's much better than you trying to do one big bulk of a mindfulness exercise once a week. And we'll go into that a little bit more again. Another useful approach from the systematic review found that CBT was really helpful. Now, we're not going to go into CBT today because this isn't a mental health intervention group, but it's just useful to know, again, because if you hear this word floating around, you'll know, oh, this is actually legit. So if we had to break it down, this review found that mindfulness was a very effective mechanism. And anything that focused on repetitive negative thinking, which is the CBT aspect of it, was really helpful as well. Okay, so that's that empirical research out of the way. All right, so I've done the stress bit. Now we're going to move into regulation. And this is going to be a little bit practical. So I want you to have a think about how this relates to you in the workplace. Okay, I'm going to give a bit of psychoeducation first about our brains. Give you a couple of examples of what that looks like for myself. And then I'm going to let you have a little bit of a think about what it looks like for you. Here we go. All right, lower brain, upper brain. I'm not sure how many of you have heard brains being described in a lower and upper way. I think we are probably very used to hearing brains talked about as a left brain, right brain. But for today, I would love to be able to explain it to you in a different way. So if we think about our brain, the lower part is probably what we would call the limbic system, which is the animalistic, very base, fight, flight, fright kind of mode. The upper brain is where we go into logical thinking, reasoning, being able to work through and problem solve. Now, for children, it's not that they have the lower brain but don't have the upper brain. It's more that they have both, but the connection might be a little bit more loose. For adults, we would hope we have a much stronger connection. So the chances of us, I guess, flipping the lid or disconnecting or not having that upper brain reasoning is a little bit less, we would hope. Now, what does this actually look like in real life? This looks like if I'm connected, I'm regulated. And if something starts to make me feel a little bit upset, say I rush for the bus and I just missed it. And so the flow-on effect of this is significant. It means I won't get to work on time. I'm going to be late for my meeting. My boss is going to blah, blah, blah. So I start to get a little bit dysregulated. My thinking cap is still on because I might go, right, no stress, I'll take the MRT. No stress, I'll call a Grab. I'll get a taxi. So that's still going on, right? What happens if I call a Grab and they can't find me? I start to get more and more dysregulated. I still can problem solve to a certain extent, but I'm really starting to feel quite worried and quite upset. How this might look for a child in terms of, if you have children, in terms of pure dysregulation would be, I want a particular ice cream flavor and it's not there. And so my parents are trying to say to me, it's okay, there's still chocolate or there's still strawberry, but I'm just going, and no matter what they say, they might say, let's go to another store. Let's come back again tomorrow. Let's buy it from NTUC. It doesn't matter because the child can't hear those logical, rational, very reasonable problem solving things. It's not that the solutions that have been offered up are not good. It's more so that they just can't hear it because this is happening right now. And so when we try and solve problems from a logical, rational way, reasoning way, when we're dysregulated, we kind of know it doesn't work. And what came to my mind was, I'm not sure if you've ever been in that state, but you're pretty upset about something and you tell a friend, oh my goodness, I can't believe this happened, blah, 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 blah. And then they turn around and say to you, oh, just calm down. Or don't be angry. Or if you're sad about something, don't be sad. I don't know what that does for you, but for me, because I'm dysregulated, that instruction of don't be sad, just be calm, simply doesn't work. It actually makes me more mad because if I knew how to not be calm, I would. Or if I knew how to calm down, sorry, I would, right? So I don't need you to tell me don't do something. But in our logical, rational reasoning world and ways, this is really common. Okay, so the take home I want you to have from this is when we have a dysregulation within ourselves, using a top-down approach, a top being rational, logical, reasoning way, does not work. Does not work. What we need to do is we need to calm our lower brain, animalistic, feeling really upset kind of brain down. And to calm that down, we don't use reasoning or logic. What do we use? That is the $1,000 question. The answer to that is we actually use our body. Okay, and I will explain that to you in the next slide. So soothing occurs at the lower brain. Don't try and use any upper brain engagement. And another useful thing to remember as well is knowledge is half the battle. So if I can't soothe my brain, then just knowing that I'm feeling really on edge right now, or I'm feeling like something's not okay, I'm feeling really stressed out, or I'm feeling a bit worried about that deadline tomorrow, or I'm feeling that this task is too hard. All of that's really important, okay? That's actually half the battle. All right, so a little bit of biology, and I will show you how this connects. Again, the reason I'm not here to be a biology teacher, the reason why I'm telling you this is there are skills and there are application tools for this outside of this workshop. But I want to explain to you the mechanisms behind it first. Okay, so the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the ANS, and it's linked to many different organs. I've made that as simple as it gets. It's actually, if you think about lower brain, upper brain, our vagus nerve starts in our brainstem, which is really fascinating because that means it's almost like connected to that very basic animalistic part of us, right? Which I find really interesting. Okay, so there's ongoing research at the moment to show how stimulation of the vagus nerve through an actual physical implant, almost like the Matrix, can help with epilepsy and major depression. There's also current work being done on obesity, irritable bowel syndrome, and stuff like that in its relation to the vagus nerve. So we're only just on the cusp of being able to understand how the vagus nerve is so crucial to our overall well-being, just our physiological body, but our mental health and our ability to deal with stress as well. So when we are in a freeze, flight, fight kind of mode, the red part of that system is activated. So I want you to imagine, think back to where our ancestors came from. We're cavemen and cavewomen in a not very concrete jungle. Okay, we're gathering around the fire, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to have for dinner, and we hear a noise in the bushes. Now, somebody might go, that's just the wind, but you prick up and you go, oh, what's that? And then you take your, I don't know what you have, but I'm going to have a spear. I don't think I'll do very well with bow and arrow. The coordination might just be the death of me. So I'm just going to take my spear and I'm going to look at this rustling in the bushes. Okay. And I then have a decision to make. Is that my dinner? Could it be rabbit? Or, sorry to all the rabbit lovers, or is it a lion? Is it a tiger? Is it a bear? Is it a hyena? Is it out to get me? Am I in danger? Or can I become the predator? And physiologically, what happens to us is our pupils start to dilate. They get really big because we suddenly need that awareness. We need to have that target vision of, if I'm going to throw my spear, it's got to work. I start to feel my heart rate go up. because my heart's beating faster in anticipation for me needing to use the adrenaline. Okay, let's say it's not my dinner. Let's say I'm their dinner. Plans change. What happens is I need to start running. I need to either run for the hills, or if it's too late, we're going to have to fight this out, which still requires a good dose of adrenaline. Okay. So if we think about that in the context of what we experience at work, I don't know if maybe you get shortness of breath. Maybe you feel your heart rate going up. Maybe you start to get a bit clammy. Maybe you start to think through your mind starts going really fast, and you're unable to focus on one thing. All of those aspects actually are very, very, very adaptive. That worry that we have and the physiological response that we are in danger, something is a threat, a deadline could be a threat, is actually incredibly helpful for us to know. So I guess the reason why I put this in is because I don't want us to think that, oh, I need to manage my stress in such a way that my heartbeat doesn't go up anymore, my heart rate doesn't increase, or I no longer feel hot, or I no longer feel cold. Because that's not possible. It's part of your lower brain limbic system, incredibly adaptive. We can fine-tune it. We can fine-tune it so that the thoughts associated with that perceived threat doesn't become overwhelming. But we don't want it to entirely go away. Okay. So let's take some time here to have a think about, how do you feel when you are stressed? What does your body do? That might be a weird question for some of us. I don't know a lot of people who ask each other those questions. What does your body do when you are sad? What does your body do when you feel overwhelmed? What does your body do when you start to worry? And I think that's a good question to reflect on. And I'm going to use that in this next slide as well. So you may or may not be familiar with this. On the left axis is performance, and on the bottom bit is actually pressure. PowerPoint happily cut that off for me in their designer wizard mode. That's fine. But essentially, if we go to the extreme left, you'll start to see that's boredom, because there's very low pressure and low performance. And then we start to move into the different colors. Comfort, where there's moderate, I'm still able to handle this. There's a little bit of stretching, it's a bit much for me. Strain, it's like, oh, this is actually hard. And then the last one, we try and stay away from that. So let's try and stay away from burnout. But the idea is, ideally where we would like to be is somewhere on the spectrum of comfort, stretch and strain, and then back to comfort again. So I'm going to give you some examples about what my body does depending on where I'm at on the curve. So if I'm in a manager's meeting, for example, and there's a lot of discussions going on, I'm not involved in any of decisions. My input is not necessary. Nobody wants to know what Mayan thinks. I'm bored. And how I know I'm bored is I start to shake my legs, much to my parents' disappointment. And I start to fidget, like I'm tapping my fingers on the table. That's why I always volunteer to take notes in meetings where I know I'm going to be bored, because there's something for me to do. And I don't look so ADD. I also start thinking about lunch. I'm just not in the room. Okay. what does comfort look like for me? An example of a task that I find really easy might be I'm reading my clinical notes about a client, getting ready for my next therapy session. My body is really relaxed. My breath is just going normal. I'm completely at ease. I'm sitting down. I'm chilling out, really. But I'm engaged. So I understand what I'm reading. I don't have a problem with it. Stretch. This might be, hey, I have to work on a WSG presentation. And my brain is churning out ideas. And I'm thinking, oh, I really want to find out what the latest research is on the vagus nerve. Now, my body starts to go, I have less tolerance of noise. So if I'm doing it in a busy workspace, I get a bit irritated with my colleagues that are talking behind me. Okay. My brain potentially starts to listen in because it's probably easier to listen to people talk about what they did over Easter than it is to try and focus on making this presentation happen. And so I know that there is a little bit of distractibility in my stretch zone, but it's still not too bad. Strain. Now, this is a really interesting one for me. I start to need to move. It's almost like the adrenaline has started to pump in for me and I need to get rid of it. So here I tend to move to a standing desk, or if I am super fidgety, I'd be like, okay, I need to take a walk. I need to go to the toilet. I need to come back. I need to do something different. Generally, the standing desk works for me. I also start to talk to myself, unfortunately, so I can process the information that I'm reading. My reading slows down. My body gets a little bit cold. Okay, and so those are just examples for me in the comfort, stretch, and strain zone. Now, in the end of the zone, which we're trying to stay away from, which is the burnout zone, it might feel like you're constantly behind. You don't know what you're doing, and that's kind of what you're saying to yourself. Those are the thoughts. I can't identify my priorities. Everything is so important. This is just too overwhelming. And then the rumination and the worries and the negative voices, they just start to get louder and louder, and I start to spiral. And then I might do things like task avoidance. I don't want to do it, it's too hard. I'm just putting it aside. I'm going to do something else. But then I never really get to the too hard thing. So then I constantly feel like I'm so far behind. Okay. All right. So there is a golden bandwidth here, and that's related to flow, which Mihai Csikszentmihalyi was the one that came up and coined this phrase of flow. And that would be the optimal performance, that, like I said, that nice movement between what's comforting, what's in my comfort zone, and what's in the strain zone. So it's not like I'm staying in comfort for the whole day, but neither is it that I'm straining for the whole day. The way he says it is the ego falls away. Time flies. Every action, movement, and thought follows inevitably from the previous one, like playing jazz. The whole being is involved, and you're using your skills to the utmost. I don't know if any of you have ever reached that flow state. For your sake, I hope you do. But I've been fortunate enough to obtain flow state at work, which is absolutely a joy. What does it look like? It's a bit like, well, it's a combination, really. When I have some strain, I'm thinking and formulating an idea that I want to happen. And then I'm putting it into words, which is my comfort space, because I have quite strong linguistic skills. So I'm able to do a bit of strain and put it into words with typing. And in flow, time passes very fast for me. I often have no idea what's happening around me. I have music on because I want to drain it out. But even spatially, if someone were to stand behind me, I wouldn't have a clue. And if you tap me on the shoulder, I would literally jump and scream. So people often don't know what to do with me if they need my attention. So I have music on. I'm not aware of the music. I know it's a familiar song. Very often it's Taylor Swift. And I'm bopping to the beat because that's helpful for me. And I will explain this later. But I'm also typing things out and I'm thinking it through and then I'm speaking it out to myself. Okay. So I really look like I'm in my own little bubble. So that's my idea of flow. And the challenge for every person, I'd love for you to go away with this idea, is to identify your bandwidth of flow. What are some of the tasks that you do in your workspace at the moment that is definitely in your comfort zone, where you're like, this is easy, I like doing it, it's part of my job description, so I have to do it. It's fun, it's easy. I can kind of almost do it with my eyes closed. What are the areas where there's a bit of stretch? What does that actually look like for you? How do you know you're stretched and where do you feel the strain? For some people, the strain might be in having to write something or having to present something. For other people, that might be their comfort. So you have individual temperaments, you've got individual differences that are at play here as well. Another thing to think about, which I mentioned previously, is the idea of task difficulty and personal skill. I think here it might be helpful to get somebody else's input on it. What do they think you're good at? Do they think that you are able to complete the task, but your feelings of overwhelmed, your dysregulation gets in the way, and then you end up not doing it because you're stressed, but you can do it if you weren't so stressed? Or is it that you actually can't do it? And the task is too hard, you need to start to think about upskilling a little bit more. And when you upskill, you'll be able to perform. So that's a good question to ask a colleague, maybe have a conversation with your boss about it. And objectively, when you're not in a stress space, objectively look at the things that you've done in your workplace and go, okay, I could do that. Did that require me to be in a strain space for a long time? Or was it really a stretch with the occasional strain? And only you'll have the answer to that. All right, so we've talked about, we're going to jump into strategies, which is, I think, where everybody wants to land on. Mindfulness. Ta-da. All right. So mindfulness is our ability to experience stress without thinking that it's coming to get us. So our ability to turn, look at that rustling bush and go, what is it? Instead of just running first without even thinking through what it is. Mindfulness has also been found to improve information processing, which is great, and all those other things that I've put on the slide. Now, mindless constant activity, I think, is where we tend to fall. And a brilliant example of this would be the scrolling that we all do. And you might do this as a way of winding down, where you just scroll and you kind of don't know where the hour has went. I think it's actually a big black hole that we kind of need to be quite careful of. And the idea of mindfulness is that we stay where we are. We are present, we are there, and we are all there. So it's actually the ability to notice and observe our negative thoughts without trying to change anything. And I think the biggest challenge that I had doing this was when a fly, I know it sounds crazy, when a fly is on me, our natural instinct is to go wave it away. I attempted stupidly a mindfulness exercise with a fly where it was on me and my mind was going, oh my goodness, this is so irritating. Like it's so itchy and it's so, but I chose the fly because I know a fly is not going to do anything to me. A mosquito might. Let's not do that with mosquitoes. But I wanted to get to a space where I can just go, and I'm noticing that there are little legs on my hand, and now it's moving down towards my wrists. It was really hard. I didn't try and change anything. I didn't move the fly away. I didn't change the state. I simply moved from this is so irritating and annoying, and I can't believe this insect exists. What are they here for? Question for God in heaven. To there is a fly on my hand. The fly is moving across my hand. I can feel its little legs moving. All right. So some things that can help us with learning how to be mindful. One, being non-judgmental. This is really hard. So a judging statement is something like, this is so irritating, because that's a judgment. The fly isn't irritating. It's just a fly. It's an insect with legs and with wings, and it eats stuff. So me putting a judgment on the fly is not necessarily accurate. So trying to be impartial. An example of this in terms of our own negative speak, or in terms of our own thoughts while at work, would be, I should be able to focus. I should be able to do this task. I should have blah, 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 blah. I must blah, 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 blah. That person can do this. Why can't I do it too? Some comparison going on. Okay. A second thing that would be really helpful with mindfulness is being patient. Easier said than done. Taking it slow. This is a new skill. It will always take time. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to, you're not going to get it like that. You're going to take time to practice it. So it's okay. Curiosity. Take each encounter that you have for mindfulness as if you were encountering it for the first time. And this is a little bit easier said than done, but essentially we don't need to actually find new things to practice. We actually just need to experience each encounter as if it were new. And to some extent, it is new. If you've done with me a mindfulness of the pen previously, every pen is different. And even if you choose the same pen, the things that you pick up about the pen is going to be different depending on how you're feeling that day. Time is linear, right? So everything is a new encounter, really. So how can we be curious about this experience that we're having right now? Non-striving would be the fourth thing, which means don't focus on once I've finished the exercise, I am now mindful. No, you're not. The goal isn't to arrive somewhere, especially when it comes to mindfulness. The process of mindfulness is the goal. And that's really hard for us to wrap our heads around, because we live in a world where the outcomes are the goal. Don't talk to me about how you got there. I just want to know that you got there. Does that make sense? And so mindfulness is almost very counterintuitive, because it's almost like the more you are trying to achieve it, the more elusive it can feel. So I'd like to remind my clients that the goal isn't to stay in a state of being present the whole time. The goal is actually, every time I catch myself drifting, I pull myself back. Every time I catch myself drifting, I pull myself back. And the act of pulling myself back to where I am, that is my winning. So if I remember, oh, I'm actually doing this exercise, but I'm now thinking about lunch, or I'm thinking about what I had for lunch, then, oh, I better come back to this exercise. I get 1 point. And the goal for me is to try and get as many points as I can, which means every time I drift, my mind is going to drift, but every time I drift and I can catch it, then I'm being mindful. Acceptance. So seeing things as they are instead of what we would like it to be, or catastrophizing into our worst case scenarios, allowing things and taking it as it comes. Last one is letting go. I'm going to try and release control and allow ourselves to fully engage in this current experience, letting go of what you hope things would be and allowing them to simply be as they are. So the 6 points here is non-judgment, patience, curiosity, non-striving, acceptance, and letting go. There's obviously different types of mindfulness out there. And I put that in just for your information. We're going to do a mindfulness practice together, which would generally be quite exciting. But just before we do that, I wanted to also let you know that there's a Q&A part that you can kind of put your questions in if you've got any, and I will certainly attend to at the end of the workshop. If I can just do a gentle reminder to not make things too personal. So if you're going to ask me something, let's try and keep it related to the content of the workshop. And certainly don't bag out your employers. All right. So how do I know I'm doing mindfulness right? That is the biggest question. And I think I answered it just now. It's not about getting to a destination. It sounds so Zen-like, but it is really about the journey. So even if you manage to focus for 30 seconds, and that's a long time in mindfulness, if you manage to focus for 30 seconds, great job. That's a really good start. And again, the hack for people who want quantifiable progress and who like to focus on goals, then have the goal as every time I drift, I bring myself back. I've managed to get 1 point. Every time I drift, I bring myself back 2 points, 3, 4, so on and so forth. Okay, so if you use the ability to come back from where my mind has gone as a litmus of right or wrong, even though I'm saying there's no right or wrong, then you're on track. So my ability to pull myself back means that I'm doing quite well. All right, there's a couple of external supports you can certainly use when we're thinking about mindfulness. There's apps out there you can use. There's breath work, which we're going to do today. And there's everyday things around you, like a fly. That's really hard. I would not wish that on anyone. My body's actually cringing when I think about that stupid fly. Okay, so I think let's try and keep it simple. You know, I know we like the idea of having something that will help us, but really this is about training our minds and training our brains, and there really isn't a shortcut. There's certainly things that can support and that can help, but you don't have to pay for it. breath work is absolutely brilliant because it is one of those things that we all breathe and we all have it with us. So why wouldn't we want to do it? Okay, so I'm going to do a mindfulness exercise and I'm going to spend, I don't know, running late, a couple of minutes on it. We'll see how we go. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and you're going to have moments of quiet. Don't worry, nothing's frozen. I'm just giving you some space to focus on your breath and trying to not add to the noise. I'm going to invite you to settle into your seat. Just feel your seat, what you're sitting on. Life is like a stage show, and on that stage are all your thoughts, your feelings, and everything that you can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. And there's a part of you that can step back and watch the show. Zoom in on any part of it and take in the detail, or zoom out and look at it big picture. We don't have a good word in this everyday language for this part of you, so I'm going to call it our observing self. Today, we're going to engage your observing self. And using your observing self, we're going to bring your attention to your body. Just with a simple focus of how it feels to be sitting down. Now, feel your feet on the ground. If you're wearing shoes, just want you to wriggle your toes, feel it inside your shoe. Notice that. Notice how your toes feel. And if you're not wearing shoes, spread your toes out against the ground and feel them. Notice how the ground feels on your toes and at the bottom of your sole. Now I'm going to bring your awareness to your breath. Notice how it goes into your nostrils and how it goes out. I'm going to invite you, if possible, to try and breathe out from your mouth while breathing in from your nostrils and out from your mouth. Notice how the air might be a bit cooler when entering your nostrils, a bit warmer that comes out of your mouth. Now, we don't have to try to exhale super hard or inhale super hard. Just breathe as you do. Your body knows how to breathe. Let's trust it to do that. And all we're going to do is focus on that breath going in and notice as it enters your nose, the extension of your lung and the movement of your diaphragm. Notice how it leaves your body. Now, if your mind is starting to wander, that's okay. I'm just going to bring it back to the breath. Don't worry about where you lost your breath count. It doesn't matter. You're just going to bring it back to the breath. Breathing in and out. In and out. Let's see if you can let your exhale be just a little bit longer than your inhale. We're going to try and count for 4 breaths in. I'm going to try and hold for 2. I'm going out for 1. And then that out breath, we're going to try and make it last a little bit longer. And again, your mind's going to drift with different thoughts that pass by. I just want you to imagine that there are cars passing by as if you were standing at a bus stop. You don't get very excited with every car that passes by. Don't get excited with every thought that comes through your mind. Your focus is on your breath. Right. I'm going to leave you to do that for maybe about 2 or 3 counts more. In, hold, and out. Slow releasing. Like you're breathing like you're blowing some candles out from your birthday cake. In, hold. Last one. In, hold, and out. All right, coming towards the end of the exercise, I'm going to use our bodies to ground you back so you can orientate yourself to time and space. Wriggle your toes. Feel what it is that's supporting your weight. Bring your awareness to what you can hear around you. Is it a computer? The aircon? Is it the buzz of being somewhere? Point in on that. I want you to think about the room that you find yourself in. Visualize that in your mind's eye. And try and bring to memory something that was blue in color. Locate that. And when you are ready, open your eyes and look for it. Okay, a couple of things for you to think about. How did you feel? Was it difficult to focus? Was it easy? Did my voice get in the way? Did you fall asleep? I get a variety of reactions. Some people love it. Some people really struggle with breath work. It's okay. You can think about different ways and specific visualizations or mental imagery for it. What I do like about the breath is that it is wherever we are. So I'm not dependent on having to switch on an app. I'm not dependent on having to find an object. All right, this is where we get to the fun stuff, and we're going to end with this. Just a couple of things for you to be thinking about. What if you need a strategy in that moment to calm your lower brain down because reasoning and rationale isn't going to cut it? This is where we pulled together the information that I gave you about the vagus nerve and how it runs through your body and all the way down to different aspects of our physiological being, and how it can tie in with mindfulness. So when we think about mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness, you needed to listen. What's that modification looking like at work? You might put some headphones on. You might put some earbuds on. Some mindfulness involves chanting or saying something simple and repetitive. That's okay. I use humming. I use singing. I use talking to myself. You might want to think about a mantra. I can do this. I'll be okay. I've done hard things before. I'm better than this. Whatever it is, that's really simple and repetitive. Mindfulness sometimes can also involve an unusual posture. You might see people sitting on the ground and doing that. You're thinking, well, I can't do that in the office. That's cool. Use a standing desk, walk around. Again, the generalization of mindfulness is very similar to what I'm talking about in that fight, flight, freeze mode. Our body needs to do something with all that adrenaline that's pumping through you. How do I channel this somewhere so I don't just look like I'm shaking? How do I get out of the office and just do a walk or go and buy some coffee or some teh tarik or something? Next one is a focused breath. And so that can be what we did just now. It can be mindful breathing. It can be psychological sighing. Now, if you haven't heard of psychological sighing before, it's actually a very interesting technique you use when you're under extremely stressful situations. You take a breath in, and then you very quickly take a second breath, and then a long exhale. And you basically try and do that for at least 3 to 5 times. So it might look something like a So I've worked on making my exhale very long. And that's something I find very helpful for myself, that if I can't even control my breathing in properly, I at least can control my exhaling. That helps. So worst times when I feel super stressed out and I can't really monitor my breathing in, I just breathe out through my mouth very slowly, like a, so it's not like for everybody to see. I'm just going, and I try and hold it. Okay. So mindful breathing, the counts that I do like, I like a 4, 2, 6. Breathe in for 4 counts, 2, 3, 4, hold for 2, out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Try and work yourself up to a much longer exhale than the inhale. What we also know is things like smiling, or better yet, if you can tell a joke and have a laugh. And those things release endorphins, which actually counteract the stress hormone. So if you're in the workplace and you're feeling really, out of it because you're so stressed out, start thinking about how you might be able to use some of these adaptations that could be helpful for you. I hope that was helpful. I'm just going to stop sharing now and I'm going to attend to what the chat is buzzing about. It's a couple of questions there. Give me 2 seconds. Oh, there's Q&As too. Good job, people. Okay, the zone of delusion at the top right of the curve. Can you share what that is? Absolutely. That I think means that you are so burnt out that you're completely deluded. And you probably think, this is not the right place for me. I shouldn't be here. And I'm going to put a caveat to that. The caveat is that there's a very high possibility that maybe work change would be helpful, or speaking to your managers about your current task load would be helpful. So I think the word delusion is actually really important because it hints that we might not actually be in the right space for making great decisions about our careers or about our work. And so we kind of might need to take a step back, especially if you've been in that strain and burnout space for a little bit too long. So Tay asks, with my example of the kid and the ice cream, I've had colleagues like that. Is that a matter of nature or nurture? Some people are chilled. Some people are kanchong. I love it. Will mindfulness help kanchong spiders? Mindfulness will help all kinds of spiders. Tay, I love it. I think it's a combination of a few things. If you go back to the lower brain and the upper brain, it could be that for some people, they never really learned how to inhibit certain responses. A lot of us hopefully have, and we might go, oh, I feel very upset that I dropped my ice cream, but I'm not going to be screaming about it. I still feel a bit dysregulated, and I might not know how to calm myself down in the moment, but hopefully with some time, I can start thinking through and problem solving it through. For those people, I would certainly say, let's work a lot more on the body regulation. So a very quick way might be holding your hands together or pressing it tight so you can bring your attention to what your hands are doing, focusing on that stress, and then release. So I love doing a lot of body work at different times, but I also use a lot of humming, a lot of whistling, because that's all part of the vagal nerve, right? It's from the back of our brainstem all the way to the bottom, and we know that voice is also really important. The purpose of identifying the item in blue for the breath work activity. Oh, okay. You caught me by surprise there. So essentially, sometimes when people go into mindfulness, and because you're closing your eyes, I'm getting you to move into a different space. When you come back in, it can be quite disorientating. This has happened for some clients because they're so far into the imagery. So I make them think about where they are back in the room. Sometimes I say, what can you smell? Or sometimes I might say, try and remember what color shirt I'm wearing or what color my shoes are, and bring your focus to that. So that's why. Oh dear. Okay, so this other person has asked, I've tried using breathing techniques, Pomodoro at work. My boss CCTV captured it. And they said you shouldn't be going to the pantry, eating snacks, and all those breathing breaks. Look, I think the question is, how often are you doing it? I think it's really a great question to ask your boss. Like, let's problem solve together. Let's have a collaboration. You know, if you are eating every 5 minutes, potentially that might be a bit of an issue. But how about if we do an experiment? What if I go for a whole week without having any of these breaks, and let's look at our productivity? And what if you allow me to do what I know works, and let's have a look at our productivity then. All right, so okay. Oh, okay. No other. Oh, last. Whoa, Eric, you just made it in. You feel a bit of anxiety, get nauseous before. Yeah, absolutely. A training course, and the next day you've got a presentation. You have frequent night wakings and then nauseous feelings. Great. So again, this is your body and the vagus nerve going, this is a perceived threat. This is really scary for me. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Now, we also know the vagus nerve is very much related to our stomach, our guts, right? So that nauseous feeling, butterflies in your tummy, all really normal. I would love to be able to normalize this for you too, Eric. I think that it's really important to know anytime we're doing a presentation, anytime we are putting our work in front of other people, just like I am with you now, we open ourselves up to criticism, we open ourselves up to bad feedback, and our mind goes to the worst case scenario, right? They think I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. And so I think finding ways to calm yourself down, whether it's by saying I'm safe, because basically your vagus nerve is saying you're not safe, be careful. It's going, something is wrong here. And so I would again go back to body-based sensations and body-based work. I would, if this is helpful for you, I use a lot of water to calm myself down. So I take sips of water in client sessions. I take sips of water during presentations. I also I think a lot of practice, right? Yeah. So trying new things is hard. Trying new things is scary. And I think part of that is when we can recognize that it's scary and it is hard, it actually becomes less scary. How do we practice mindfulness in playing politics environment? Will you end up being hurt? I don't think so, because mindfulness isn't about allowing everything that comes your way. Like, those are two separate things. I think that's maybe a bit of lost in translation. So when I say accept things that come your way, I mean, like, I am feeling hot right now. I am accepting that my palms are sweating and this is happening and but it doesn't mean that you get to bully me or you get to corner me into doing something I don't want to do. That's a boundary question, and they're two separate things. I have completely run over time. Fortunately, I won't be able to answer all of those. So I'm going to leave that. And back to you, Tammy.
Thank you, Dr. Lim, so much for your time and for your valuable sharing with us today. I hope everyone has enjoyed all the practical tips, especially about mindfulness. And now we'd like to have Ms. Shahika to share with us our WSG programs for Singaporeans. Shahika, over to you, please.
Thank you, Tammy. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thanks. Okay. All right, also thank you, Dr. Meein, for the insightful sharing. We've certainly learned a lot on how to manage stress from your presentation today, particularly on mindfulness. I'll start off with a brief introduction. I'm Shahika from Workforce Singapore. Thank you for joining me today. I will be sharing with you key programs and initiatives by WSG. So whether you are looking for a new job, seeking to change jobs, or simply looking for career guidance, I hope this presentation will be informative and helpful to you. Okay, so let's start with a brief introduction of who we are and what we do. So we are a statutory board under the Ministry of Manpower. WSG focuses on building a future-ready workforce, and our vision is for every individual in a fulfilling career with progressive employers, and our mission is to enable individuals to adapt and employers to transform. All right, I will start with the first program. I would like to share about the Career Conversion Programs, or CCP for short. If you are a mid-career professional interested in switching career, our CCP helps you to undergo reskilling to take on new jobs in growing sectors. So while undergoing the CCP program, you can receive up to 90% salary support. And there are two modes of CCPs. It's the place and train and attach and train. What are the differences between them? The place and train program is for those interested in switching to a new career but are lacking the relevant skills or experience. So you will be hired by the employer first and then undergo structured training to acquire the necessary skills to succeed in the new job role. On the other hand, the attach and train is for individuals who already have some skills or experience in a particular field, but may need additional training to transition to a new career. So before getting hired, you will undergo training and work attachment first to see if you are suitable for the new role. We have close to 100 CCPs across 30 sectors. And if you'd like to view the list of CCPs available, you can scan the QR code for more in-depth information. Okay, moving on now, I'm going to be talking about the SG United Mid-Career Pathways Program. It's a full-time program, a full-time attachment program to help mid-career individuals aged 40 and above looking for a switch in careers. So suitable applicants can embark on industry-relevant attachments program, and this could last up to 6 months with the host organizations. So while undergoing the SG United Mid-Career Pathways program, you will receive training allowance between $1,800 to $3,800 per month, depending on the scope of the work. So you can also look forward to conversion to a full-time role, depending on your performance. If you're keen to apply, you can also visit mycareersfuture.gov.sg. Alternatively, you can also scan the QR code. Okay, the career trial is a program that allows an unemployed person to undergo a short-term trial first before considering formal employment to see the job fit. So these are for jobs with starting pay of $1,500 per month for the full-time jobs and $750 per month for part-time jobs. So while undergoing the career trial, WSG will pay the individual a training allowance ranging between $7.50 to $15 per hour. And the full-time positions have to fulfill up to 480 hours. So that's about 3 weeks of training hours. And the part-time positions, approximately up to 3.5 days of training hours per month. Okay, now I'll move on to talk about my Careers Future Job Portal. One of the key features of this job portal is that it is different from other portals out there, as there is an algorithm that will help to match your skills with the relevant job roles. So it will also recommend adjacent jobs based on your current skills. And besides that, it also highlights jobs which are eligible for government support. Okay, the career matching services provides career guidance and matching services to all Singaporeans, regardless of the stage of your career. So it is not only for mid-career switchers, it could be for those who are rejoining the workforce after taking a long-term break, those who have been retrenched or unemployed and so forth, and even those currently employed and in need of guidance for their career development. How is this done? You can visit our career coaches at the Career Connect centers to get career advisory, or you can also use the video chat or text chat services. You can also call our hotline at 6883-5885. Besides that, you can also tap on WSG's pool of volunteer career advisors who can provide peer support. So this on the insights on industry and skills trends, and also sector and occupational career advice. This will help you to have greater confidence as you make informed career decisions. So there are VCAs in the electronics, healthcare, ICT, and many more sectors listed here. And if you'd like more information, you can click on the QR code that will lead you to the ways where you can approach the volunteer career advisors. Okay, lastly, this is the program that I'll be sharing with you. It's the SG United Jobs and Skills Placement Partners Initiative. So this initiative aims to support local job seekers who are 40 years and above, unemployed for 6 months or more, or also for persons with disabilities, to secure jobs and attachments through our panel or panel of appointed employment agencies. So this provides an additional job search channel to these individuals. If you'd like to sign up, you can sign up with one of our placement partners at gogov.sg /SGUJSPP. So in the event that you are shortlisted for an interview, they will be contacting you for further details. With that, I've come to the end of my presentation, and thank you for staying with me. Do subscribe to our mailing list, or you could also join our Telegram channel or visit our website to help you with more information on our programs and services. Okay, thank you. Over to you, Tammy.
Shahika, thank you very much for your time. Now for this session, we would like to invite you to participate in our feedback poll. Please give us your honest feedback so that we can further improve on our brown bag sessions. The feedback poll should be popping up on your screen, so please take a few moments to complete the poll. Thank you very much for your feedback and for joining us today. This brown bag session is proudly brought to you by HeadHunt in partnership with Workforce Singapore. Our next session will be next Wednesday on the 19th of April, and the topic will be Reclaiming Your Strengths in the Workplace, brought to you by Dr. Hannah Su. Now, please register early on our website, masterclass.sg, if you'd like to join us for the next session. With that, we'll wrap up today's session, but please do stay around, and Workforce Singapore will be available to answer any of your questions if you'd like more assistance. So do stay around and chat with them on the using the chat function. Thank you, and we wish you a good day.